Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia here, and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup. Playoffs Week 2 preview. So, we have had the first week of fixtures in the playoffs for the 2019 season of the Overwatch League, and we now know that we will have new champions after the reigning champions, London Spitfire, were knocked out last week by the San Francisco Shurk. We also lost the 8th seed Seoul Dynasty, who were knocked out by the Hangzhou Spark. But that is all in the past now, and it's time to move on to the fixtures we will see this week as we whittle down the teams to find out the two who will be going to the grand final in Philadelphia. We begin this week in the losers bracket. We will start at midnight British Summer Time or 1 AM in Europe on Friday, September the 13th. Anyone superstitious? The first game will be Atlanta Reign taking on the Hangzhou Spark. As we are in the losers bracket, as ever, it is make or break for these teams. If they lose, they go home. Win and you still have a shot at the grand final. Atlanta Reign have looked very good, having a breakthrough stage 4 and then knocking the early favourite San Francisco Shurk down to the losers bracket, before they lost narrowly to a very good looking New York Excelsior side. Hangzhou Spark didn't have a long stay in the winners bracket, as they lost their first game narrowly again to the LA Gladiators. In their first game of the losers bracket, they did manage to knock out a very fancied Seoul Dynasty side. This game is very difficult to call, with both teams looking fairly good during these playoffs, but I worry about the Hangzhou Spark as I think they rely heavily on Bazzi's Doomfist popping off right now, and so if the Atlanta Reign can limit his impact or shut him down completely, I think the Spark could struggle here, unless someone else can step up to the plate. At the moment, the Reign look very well-rounded, and can go toe-to-toe with the best in the league right now. They look like a dark horse of the competition, and if anyone might cause an upset and surprisingly take the crown, it could be the Reign. As I said before, this one is really hard to call, but I would have to go with the Atlanta Reign, just because I think they have a bit more quality all-round, and I think Bazzi is really going to have to pop off if Hangzhou want a chance here. Or someone else really has to make plays for the Spark. Next up, we have the LA Gladiators taking on the San Francisco Shurk, which will be at 3 AM British Summer Time or 4 AM in Europe. Great. Looks like another game that I'll have to catch up on again. Thank you, Overwatch League. I think this one will be a cracker though. Two teams that have looked really good during these playoffs despite losing in the winners bracket. The DPS for the Gladiators have looked good, and they have a really good flexibility option to catch their opponent off guard by putting hydration on the Orisa. But I'm not sure they should be considering that, considering hydration has looked really good on the Doomfist. As always, the San Francisco Shurk have looked very good all round, and have a wealth of options on the bench that they can turn to if they need to shake things up. I think, ultimately, going into this game, the Shurk will be the favourites, but I think they could very easily be matched by the Gladiators, if they play to their potential, and LA could easily pull off a win here. As for the prediction, I will have to go for the San Francisco Shurk here. I think they're a very well-rounded team and have great skill on every role, which should be able to see them through. Whereas I think the Gladiators' DPS line will really have to pop off to knock out the favourites. Don't get me wrong though, I think the Gladiators are capable of matching the Shurk and could knock them out here, but I think it's more likely the Shurk will clutch it out in the end, especially if the match goes to distance. For now, we move away from the losers bracket though, and we come to our final game in the winners bracket, which will decide the final team to drop down to the losers bracket, and the one team that will proceed out of the winners bracket and take that first place in the grand final in Philadelphia. This game will be at midnight British Summer Time or 1 AM in Europe on Saturday, September the 14th, and will feature the New York Excelsior, who have looked very good during these playoffs, taking on the Vancouver Titans, who have equally looked as good during their playoff run. This one is so difficult to call. At the start of the playoffs, I would have said easily that the Titans would win this matchup, but now I'm not so sure after New York have shown us some great displays to get this far. Both teams will have had a good amount of time to prepare for each other, and ultimately it could come down to who has prepared better and who has got the most unique strats to catch the other team off guard. New York have shown a lot of unique strats during these playoffs, including some Bastion and some Matcha strats with their previous opponents, the London Spitfire and the Atlanta Reign, have struggled to deal with, and have ultimately succumbed to. The question is, will the Vancouver Titans fall in the same way? I don't think so somehow. I think the Vancouver Titans will happily either match the comps that the Excelsior come out with, or innovate to find a way to deal with them. So I think this game will heavily depend on the in-game adaptation of the two teams, and who can innovate quicker and deal with what their opponent is throwing at them. I am going to stick my neck out here, and say that I think the New York Excelsior will win this match. I didn't think I'd be saying this at the start of the playoffs, let's be honest. I don't think anyone did. The reason I say this is because I think the NYXL have a lot of tricks up their sleeve, and I think the Vancouver Titans might lose, and then this would be their wake-up call going down to the losers bracket. A lot of people have been of the opinion that the final would probably be the Vancouver Titans taking on the San Francisco Shock, but for some reason I have never really thought this would happen, as one of these teams would slip up before getting to the grand final. If Vancouver do lose here, then it would be impossible for both the Shock and the Titans to get to the grand final, as the NYXL would be taking that first spot. So yes, I am predicting that the NYXL will get to the grand final and be the winners of the winners bracket, knocking the Vancouver Titans down to the losers bracket. So, we will go back to the losers bracket now, as we have seen the semi-finals earlier in the week, and now we need to decide who will be taking on whoever loses in the winners bracket final. This game will take place at 8 PM on Saturday, that's 9 PM in Europe. It will either be the Atlanta Reign or the Hangzhou Spark versus the LA Gladiators or the San Francisco Shock. I'm not going to make any predictions on this, as we don't know the teams that will be competing, but in any case, it really should be an entertaining game nonetheless. All these teams, as I said at the start of this whole playoffs thing, anyone can beat anyone, right? So, honestly, these teams are all fairly evenly matched when you look at their playoffs so far. Yes, the San Francisco Shock may stand out, but they've got possibly a more difficult tie against the Gladiators than they would have had against perhaps the Reign or the Hangzhou Spark, although how can I say that when Atlanta Reign knocked them out of the winners bracket? So, it's anybody's game. It's knockout. Who knows what's going to happen? But, moving on. The last game of the week will decide who will be joining the winner of the winners bracket in the grand final. And it will be whoever lost the final of the winners bracket versus the winner of the previous game. This will take place on Sunday the 15th of September at 8 PM British Summer Time or 9 PM in Europe. There are a lot of different teams that could be in this game, but whoever comes out of the losers bracket will be facing either the New York Excelsior or the Vancouver Titans. And hey, if the Shock do what everyone is expecting, then we should be in for an incredible game here. But you never know what might happen in the earlier games this week, so making predictions for this is pretty useless in any case. Again, as I said just now, a lot of these teams are quite evenly matched in the losers bracket, so it's not impossible to see any one of the four in this game, but it should be really, really interesting. And I think it's anyone's game at this point, anyone's title. Someone could take it by the ruff of the neck in this week and really march through. But it should be really interesting. All about that in-game adaptation. But that's it for this week. There should be a lot of great Overwatch on show during this week. I feel like I've said that a lot during these playoffs, but it is true. There are some really big games this week, and we will finally find out who will be going to Philadelphia and the grand final of the Overwatch League 2019. 6 teams left. Who will be taking the crown? I can't wait to find out. But, for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then!